Hello and welcome to the relearning for finding an equation of a line that is parallel or perpendicular to another line and a point. In this relearning, please put the date that you're watching this video up at the top, your name and your period, and if you remember it, your number. We're going to be using for this relearning a lot the slope-intercept form. With the slope-intercept form, the light on, the slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b. And before I go on, if you don't have the sheet, you can rewrite all of the information on it on a loose leaf piece of paper, or you can find that there's copies of it in the back of room 1029, where in the blue compartment, and it'll say right at the top, the relearning for the equations for parallel and perpendicular lines. So we're going to be using this slope-intercept form, which is y equals mx plus b. Remember that x and y come from a point. They come from a specific point. M is the slope, and it's any number that's in front of the x. If there isn't a number in there, it's an understood 1, but there is always a number in front of the x, and it could be a 1 if it's not written in there, otherwise anything that's written in front of it. B is the y-intercept, and it's when x equals 0, it's the number, the second number, and it's where it crosses the y-axis, the y-axis. So if we were to solve this equation, we were given an equation of a line, we were to put 0 in for our x. 0 times any number is 0. That means that y would equal b. That would be our second number over here. And we would graph it as a point, and it would be on our x-axis right here. Parallel lines of two different equations have the same slope, the same. Perpendicular lines have a specific way that their slope is related. The slope that of the line given, you flip it and take the opposite sign, the opposite sign. So when it says to take a perpendicular line, we look at the slope that's given, we flip it, and we take the opposite sign. Parallel lines are the same. And we're going to be using the y equals mx plus b. Okay, let's look at some sample problems here. To find the equation of a line parallel to y equals negative 6x minus 3 and passes through the point negative 4, 0. Now these problems will all have the same components. We have parallel or perpendicular. We have an equation of a line. This is an equation of a line. What does that mean? That if we were to put in an x value, we could get a y value, and they would all be on a line on our graph, either up, down, but they would be all on a line with a specific b, which is a negative 3 right here, and they pass through the point, and we're looking for a line that passes through the point negative 4, 0. So these are the main parts. We need to know we are looking for a parallel or a perpendicular line. We need to have an equation of a line, and we need to have a point. In this equation of the line, we're going to take one specific piece of information, and that is the slope. The m equals negative 6. Because we're looking for a new equation, where our answer is going to look like this, we're going to look for a new equation. That new equation has, in order for it to be parallel, the slope has to be the same. So we're going to use that slope here. But as far as this negative 3, that's specific only to this line. But we're going to look at this point right here, because that point gives us our x and our y. So in this equation of the line, we're only looking for the number in front of x, and we're deciding whether it's parallel or perpendicular. So our x value is negative 4, our y is 0. -4, and 0. So we're going to use our y equals mx plus b, and we're going to plug in our values here. But our first step is to solve for b. So how does this look? We have our y here from our point, which is 0. We have our m here, which is -6. And that's given from an equation because we want those to be parallel. And our x is from our point right here is -4. And then we have one part left, this plus b. A lot of people have put in this -3 and just carried that right down here. You don't need to do that. That -3 is specific only to that line. We're looking for our new y-intercept, our new b. So we're going to solve this little equation right here and get our b value. So 0 equals -6 times -4 is a positive 24 plus b. So this is telling us what plus 24 will give us 0. So hopefully we can see that that's a -24, but should you not see it, we're going to take and subtract -24 from both sides. -24 equals b. Our second step is we're going to go back and use y equals mx plus b again, only we're going to be looking at our m and our b. We have our b right here, which is -24. Our m comes from the slope that we used right here. Comes from that. So our m is -6. We put it in here, y equals -6x plus a -24. And this is our answer. If you've stopped only at the solving for b, you've stopped in a way that doesn't solve the answer because we need an equation of a line, and this is an equation of a line. It has an x and a y in here. We have our slope and we have our y-intercept. Okay, the next problem, you'll see that they're all set up the same. Find the equation of the line that is parallel. It's either parallel or perpendicular. We're going to look at parallel. We have an equation that's given to us, and we have a point. So the slope that's given to us is a -3. Because it is parallel, we're going to just use the -3. We need an x, which is 2, and a y, which is 4. Y equals mx plus b. Our 4 equals -3 times 2. -3 is our slope. X is our 2 plus b. 4 equals -6 plus b. What plus -6 gives us 4? Well, again, it might be tricky to be able to see. If you're not used to it, we're going to add 6 to both sides. That means -6 plus 6 equals 0. But because we have our equal sign in between, we're going to add 4 plus 6 is 10 equals b. 10 plus -6 gives us 4. Our second step, y equals mx plus b again. M equals this -3 goes here because that's the one we used in our equation. We're going to keep our b is 10. And then we're going to write it right in here. Y equals -3x plus 10. And that's the equation of the line. Flipping it over. Perpendicular. Again, all the same. We have perpendicular here. We have an equation of a line that's given to us, and we have a point. These are all set up the same thing. So from this line here, we're going to pick out one particular piece of information and one only, and that's m equals -5. However, with perpendicular, we're going to have to change our -5 into a slope that's perpendicular to it. So we're going to change it. And this is the only step that's different than the parallel lines. This is -5 over 1. We're going to flip it. It's 1 over 5. This is a -5, so this is a positive 1/5. And that is a new slope that we're going to be able to use. M equals 1 over 5. X comes from our point, which is 10. And y equals 6. 6 equals 1/5 times 10 plus b. Again, not -2 plus b. So I'm going to off to the side. I'm just going to take a look at this part right here because sometimes that's tricky for people. So 1 over 5 is a fraction. Multiplying by another fraction is 10 over 1. 1 times 10 is 10. 5 times 1 is 5, and it's divided by 5 divided into 10 goes 2 times. 6 equals 2 plus b. What plus 2 gives us 6? We can clearly see that this is 4. 4 plus 2 equals 6. We could also subtract 2 from both sides. 6 minus 2 is 4. Our second step is y equals mx plus b. We have our new slope. We use this one right here. M equals 1/5. Our b is 4 from right here. And y equals 1/5 x plus 4. And there is our answer. Write the equation of the line that is perpendicular. There's then one piece of information. The second tells us our line, and we want it perpendicular here. And then we have a point. So our slope, that's the only thing we pick out of this line. And this slope, it tells us that m is equal to 1/2. So because this information tells us we have to do perpendicular, we have to change it. We need to flip it. So it'll be, which is also called the reciprocal, we're going to turn it over. 2 over 1, which is 2. This is a positive. Now this one becomes negative, and that's our new slope. So m equals -2, x equals 6, and y equals 4. Again, using our y equals mx plus b. 4 equals -2 times 6 plus b. This -6 is specific only to this line. We have to find what that would be for a new line that we have. 4 equals -12 plus b. What plus -12 gives us 4? You might not be able to see it. If you don't see it, we're going to add 12 to both sides. B equals 16. Our second step, y equals mx plus b again. Our m comes from here, -2. Our b, 16. Y equals -2x plus 16. And there's our answer. The next two problems that we have on here are set up for you. Please show all your work in order to get credit for the relearning. In addition, down here at the end, I'd like you to write out your steps on how you think of solving the problem. If you choose to do this in different colors, I would suggest that to you because it helps you to remember the different steps. But if you don't, that's just fine. I'll need to see all three of these things worked out in order to get credit for the relearning. Once you've done that and you feel successful on it, we'll begin to set up for the assessment. Thank you.